So when is the right time to buy, or when is the smart time to buy real estate? Well, it all really depends on a lot of different parameters. Your income, your stability, your assets, how much you got, your credit scores, all that comes into play. But let's just say there's an average buyer out there with the average income in the neighborhood and the average credit score, and they want to buy a home and they want to buy a primary. So if you're buying a primary residence, I would say, and it's like you're going to live there for a while, there's no wrong time to buy. If you're buying an investment property and you're going to flip it, obviously you want to time it right. Or if you're buying for short-term gains, you want to time it correctly, so you're buying at the right time. But I hear a lot of buyers out there say, well, I'm going to wait for the interest rates to come down. Guys, the interest rates are 6% right now, less than 6%, just in the high fives. Anything between 7.5% and 5%, that's average interest rates. Anything below 4%, I hear buyers say, well, I'm going to wait till they go into the below 4. I just pulled it up on Fred, on the Freddie Mac website. In the last 55 years, only 9 years out of the last 55 have the interest rates gone below 4%. So if you're going to wait for interest rates to go below 4% in order to purchase, then you're probably going to be waiting like another 36 years for that interest rate to drop. You could have bought a house and paid it off in 36 years and then some by the time those interest rates drop. And right now we're at a crucial point, because we are at 6% and they're talking about lowering interest rates. And once they lower interest rates, prices go up. So the amount of money that you're going to save on interest rates throughout the years until it drops, because remember this, you can buy now with interest rates being 6%, let's just say, round off the numbers, 6%. And then 3-4 years from now, let's say it drops down to 4%. You can always refinance. The amount of money that you saved in 3 or 4 years is not even close compared to the amount that the property value has gone up because the interest rates have dropped. So you're actually losing money in a sense. And if you're a veteran, right now is it's a buyer's market right now. So that means that you can negotiate price, you can negotiate repairs, you can negotiate. Whereas before, when it was a seller's market, you couldn't do any of that. And if you're a veteran, you can not only, it's a buyer's market for you, so you can negotiate, but you can also assume low interest rates. And even if you're a non-veteran too, but mostly for veterans. And I'll explain that a little bit later. But if interest rates, if you're buying a property and they have a VA loan and it's 2.5%, you can assume that 2.5% right now. So you're buying in a buyer's market, you're getting a low interest rate, and guess what? You can pass that VA loan when you go to sell in 5 to 7 years or 3 years, whatever. You can pass that low interest rate on to the next buyer. So let me explain the veterans and non-veterans. So veterans, any VA or any veteran can assume another veteran's VA loan interest rate as long as they have the VA entitlement to do so. If they didn't have the VA entitlement, if you're a non-veteran, you don't have the VA entitlement to swap it out, you can still assume that low interest rate, but that means that veteran, that seller that has a low interest rate, has to give up his VA entitlement to you, who's a non-veteran, to assume that low interest rate. And there's probably about 30% of veterans out there on the market right now. There's close to 100 properties that are being advertised as VA assumables with low interest rates. And there's probably about 30% of those where the veterans are willing to give up their VA entitlement. The other 70%, they want to keep their VA entitlement, obviously, so they can use their VA loan in the future. But you can assume a VA loan if you are a non-veteran. That is for sure. And there's people that are doing it all the time. So right now is the perfect time, I believe, is the perfect time to buy property. And especially if you're getting PCS here in Hawaii, because interest rates are 6%, they drop down to 5%, and property values go up. And the reason that they go up is because people can afford more. The reason that the government lowers the interest rate is because the economy is not doing very well. So they want buyers to do those large purchases. They want them to purchase homes, boats, cars. So they lower the interest rates to stimulate the economy. If the economy is doing well, they don't lower the interest rates. They don't need to. If the economy is doing really well, that's what you saw in the 80s. The interest rates go up to like 18%. Because they don't need people doing big purchases. And there's a lot of other factors that come into play, but I'm just really dumbing it down and summarizing it here. But so interest rates when interest rates go down, prices go up. And a lot of times when the interest rates go down, people are like, okay, now I'm ready to buy. It's too late. The homes that they want are cost too much and they can't afford it. So buy now. It's the right time to buy. Buy now if you're buying your primary residence. And if you're a veteran, buy now and assume that low interest rate. Even if you gotta get a second mortgage or what they call gap financing to make up the difference, you can get gap financing to make up the difference. So let's say the property is for sale at $600,000 They have a VA loan of $500,000 on the property at 2.5% interest. So that means it gives you a $100,000 gap between what the mortgage balance of $500,000 is and the selling price, the purchase price. So that gap you can make up by coming down in price, or by making it up with cash as a down payment, or you can get gap financing, which is a second mortgage basically on top of the 2.5%. And no, you can't increase the $500,000 to make up the difference with that low interest rate. That stays the same, $500,000, 2.5% interest. And then you're gonna get a second mortgage on top of that, where the interest rate is probably gonna be about 7-8%, depending on your credit and that type of thing, but they will finance up to 90 or 95% of the value of the property. So literally you only have to come in with 5% down if you assume a VA mortgage. So if you guys have more questions, please hit me up, 808-489-0054, or shoot me an email, timsells@gmail.com. Aloha.